Hello, it's Dan from U-Scribe Jig, and today I'm scribing some fillers on this wardrobe cabinetry. So why don't you come along and see exactly how I do this step by step. So first things first, when we're scribing with U-Scribes on our cabinetry, we need to figure out which U-Scribes to use. So the easiest and simplest way you'll ever do this is by measuring the carcass material that's going to give you the size of the U-Scribe you need. So in this instance, I'm using 18mm boards, so I'll use 18mm U-Scribes. It's a good tip to always remember, you're always scribing from your cabinetry, and the U-Scribe size is always your cabinetry size, not your filler size. So it's always your cabinet thickness, not your filler thickness. Here we have our latest version of the U-Scribe Jig set, which is everything you could possibly need to get perfect scribe lines, 16mm, 18mm, 19mm scribe compasses, and our very cool branded Scribe Like a Pro pencils. So I need 18mm U-Scribes, and these are the green. So I'm going to take these and get ready to scribe. Another simple way to check is take the U-Scribes that you're using, slide them onto your material and check that they fit. Now, we've designed a small tolerance into the U-Scribe jigs so that you don't break them and burst them, so they will flex just slightly to compensate for the different thicknesses and boards that you will get. Each manufacturer, each texture even, has got a different thickness, only very slightly, sometimes only 0.1mm, but this will alter and change the U-Scribe jig that you need. But in this instance, I need 18, so we're going to use these 18mm U-Scribes. Now I'm going to get the filler material that I need to fill the gap. Now there's two main methods of using the U-Scribe jig. One is the infinity method, and one is the offset method. And in this short video, I'm going to do both methods. But firstly, we're going to work and talk about the offset method. So I'm going to cut my material to fit this filler. I'll start off by cutting my material about 10 or 15mm bigger in height. This filler is only going to the top of the cabinet, because my ceiling scribe will go all the way across. And using the offset method, we're using the thickness of this panel to mark out the offset of our filler that we need to remove. So in simple terms, as long as this filler doesn't run out more than 18, because I'm using 18mm U-Scribes of 18mm cabinet, I can cut this piece of material within the 18mm tolerance over size. So in short, if I need this filler to finish at 55mm, it means I've got a tolerance up to 74, because we're removing 18mm to fit inside. So what I can do now is take a few measurements, find the narrowest point, cut my material to that narrowest point, then I can come back upstairs, attach my U-Scribes, and I can show you the next step. So now I've prepped my material, oversized in height and in width, ready to attach my U-Scribes. But I like to do a couple of little steps first. One, I like to add masking tape to dark colours because I'm going to find it quite difficult to see my pencil line. And two, on this one, which was a popular debate on most of our videos, is that the skirting board, baseboard, whatever you like to call it, whatever country you're from. So do we remove the baseboard and put it back on after, or do we cut around it? It's completely down to you. A lot of people say, oh, why don't you multi-tool the baseboard away? If you want to multi-tool the baseboard away, that's completely up to you. For me, this is not an old property, but it's been freshly plastered. I don't want to remove the skirting board because I don't want to damage the plaster on the walls. It's been freshly plastered. So for me, I'm going to scribe around it. So one of the first things I'm going to do, again, because we're working on the offset method, we've got the 18mm to play with. I'm going to remove a little bit from the bottom of the board so I can slide the filler in place and mark around that skirting board more accurately, which I'll show you now. But all I'm doing here firstly is just taking this material to the wall. I know it's oversized, I'm just going to roughly mark where the top of the skirting board is, and I know I've got a little bit of scope. I can take this material away before I scribe. So pre-cutting done, we're masked the filler ready for scribing, and we're going to talk about how we attach our U-Scribes. Now for the people saying you've already pre-cut the material twice, what's the point? Hang on for the infinity method and you'll be very happy. The offset method I'll always describe as a far more accurate way of scribing your fillers. So if you've got tricky mouldings or a wall or a ceiling that's quite intricate, you're going to find being closer to the edge of the material, you can mark it out a lot neater. If your walls are a little bit straighter, there's less mouldings or no skirting boards or anything involved, like the top of this top scribe where I'm going to use the infinity method, you'll see a very speedy, quick way of using U-Scribes. But for now, in the offset method, we're talking about how we're going to attach this to our material. So there's two main methods of fastening our U-Scribes. One is the hole in the seat position you can see here, and the other is a slotted section here. We'll talk about the slotted section later. For now, we'll just concern ourselves with this hole in the seat position. So this is our material. We don't want to damage the front or the inside edge, as the inside edge and the front may be seen, especially if it's a face filler. So we need to attach our U-Scribes at the back. And we can do this simply by aligning our U-Scribes with our front edge, using a correct size screw that it does not protrude and penetrate and damage the front of the material. Fasten it in place. A good idea would be to use the chuck setting on your drill so that when you get to the required tension, the screw won't over tighten, won't damage your U-Scribe and won't come through the material. We advocate using a cordless drill, not an impact driver, when fastening U-Scribes to material, as an impact driver is a high torque setting machine and it will easily go straight through a U-Scribe and straight through material and damage the whole project before you've begun. Now that our U-Scribes are attached, you can simply slide them over our cabinetry, holding that filler perfectly in place, perfectly parallel all the way down. And that's the unique part about Uscribejig. It fixes the reference point, giving you that datum to work from so you can mark accurately, more consistently and get better results first time by marking a perfect scribe line on your material. So we can see here, our filler is flush with the inside of our cabinet. Now we need to remove the thickness of our cabinet, hence we call it the offset, as we are now offset past what the filler thickness needs to be by the front of our cabinet, which is the same material. So all we need to do now is set our cut block, scribe tools, simply like the block scribe or a scribe compass, or as simple as an offcut of the material and a pencil, and mark the perfect image of our wall directly onto our material using your favourite scribe tool or cut block. So in this instance with the block scribe, it's 18mm. I'll put the 18mm part on the wall and then I would scribe the difference. We're always marking what we need to remove. So if you think of it like I am marking this now, that piece is what you need to remove. And a good tip would always be to keep the pencil line in. Don't take it out, because the pencil line is actually the thickness of the material that you're putting in. So if you take the pencil line out, you will take off a couple of millimeters that you need to keep on. So always keep your pencil line in. So now I'm using a combination of the block scribe and scribe compass to mark this filler. Now we fix the reference point, we know it's perfectly flush. We need to remove the excess, set my block scribe to the 18mm tolerance. Now I'm marking the perfect image of my wall directly onto my filler. All the wobbles and all the undulations of this wall are now being marked direct to my material. I'm not taking measurements and adding them to the material because that's guesswork. Now I'm drawing the image directly to the material. That's the key point. You know you're drawing the nicest possible finish to this material to cut so that you get the perfect image to fit inside. You're drawing the exact image of your wall onto your material. And just at the bottom here, the scribe compass also set to the same width. I'll scribe around the mouldings. So now I've got the perfect image of this wall, skirting profile onto this filler. I'm confident to go away, cut to that pencil line, and now I'm going to get a great finish. So now I've got the simple process of just removing my U-Scribes from material. They've done their job, giving me the ability to mark that perfect scribe line. So simple but so effective. It's left me now with the perfect scribe line to cut, as you can see here, with the skirting profile all the way up. Now I'm fortunate enough that I've got a table saw downstairs, so I would reduce the majority of this material downstairs with a table saw, but I will cut out the skirting profile with my jigsaw. Now it's up to you how you want to achieve the finish. I know people like to use table saws, hand saws, track saws, jigsaws. That's completely down to you. Whichever you feel the most comfortable with, getting the best result, that's the machine for you. Now I did say I would do a step-by-step process of everything that I'm going to do today, even down to the cutting. Now a big question we get asked is, what blades am I putting in my jigsaw? I like to cut upside down. I've done videos on this in the past if you'd like to see them. I believe it just cuts cleaner, neater, and it's my preference. So I'm using T101B blades, T101B. They're upward cutting blades. So if you're cutting from the face, they'll cut the underside neat. But for me, because I like to work where I can see the line, I'm cutting from upside down, so I will cut the face neat. For intricate profiles, people will probably like to use a coping foot on their jigsaw to get the best results. Another tip would be, don't force your jigsaw. Don't push it too hard, take off little bits at a time. The blade is pulling down and cutting with teeth. You try and turn it too much, you try to go too hard, it's not going to work, you're not going to get the results you want. Patience is key. These fellas, I like to add a 15-degree back bevel. So as you can see here, the blade is slightly angled away. It's at 15 degrees. It just takes the back edge away from the material, so that when you're fitting your filler shortly, there's less material to bind on the back wall. You're creating a chamfer. I know there'll be two questions. We dust extractors upstairs, I know. The other thing is, you should always wear correct PPE. Always wear the correct PPE. Be careful, don't push the machine. Don't be too clever. The machine will tell you if you're too clever. Cut your fingers off. Careful. Now as you can see on this filler, we've attached a back bevel. When it zooms, will it get to zoom in? Get this part, there you go. So you can see, that's why I added the 15 degree, so it'll add that back bevel. You'll also see, I wasn't too clever. On the odd part, I'm going to have to touch it over the plane. Sometimes you can be really accurate, but if you're on a table saw, it wants to cut straight. So some of these bevels will need taken out with either a sander or an electric plane. Now it's time for the dry fit. So you can see, we'll just slide our filler into our opening there, and I'm just going to have to tap that in as we work our way down. But you can already see we've got a brilliant result. We've got a very accurate scribe because we have used them principles of using the U-Scribes, setting the offset, and then using a super accurate method of marking the perfect image of the wall directly to a material, and that's where you get very, very good results. So what I've got to do now, as I showed you previous, is I've cut my height long. I like to do this just in case we need to do a retrim of the floor, or if the skirting board or bevel tapers in or tapers out, we've got a little retouch. But in this instance, we're good to go. I can mark the height, take that down, cut it on my saw, I'll bring it back up, and I'll show you how I'm going to fix this one. So you can see we've got a lovely, nice fit all the way up and down our material, nice and tight to the wall because we drew that image of that wall. So on this instance, or on this installation, so we call it, I've got hinge plates here. So all I need to do is set my filler flush with my cabinet, pre-drill my screws, and then I can just fasten them just below the surface. The hinge plate and the hinge are going to cover all these screws. If you wanted to have no screws on show, or you wanted a filler that was flush with the cabinet doors, all you need to do is add a return batten to this material. So it was 18mm or 20mm or 22mm further forward to allow for your doors, or you could attach the filler with dominoes, or you could screw it or nail it. It's all down to your installation preference. What the U-Scribe Jig does is give you the ability to mark them perfect scribe lines, so you can get fillers as flush and as tight and as nice as that. And that's why the tradesman who bought it dubbed it the cork killer. No cork would be needed. So that's the offset method. That's the offset method. on the side filler. I'll now move on to the top scribe where we'll use the infinity method, which is super quick, super accurate, no pre-rips required, and possibly the most used way of fitting your fillers and face your U-Scribe, especially when doing, like, say, top scribes, plinths and fillers where there is no mouldings or anything in the way. Okay, let's move on to the infinity method with this top scribe. Now in the infinity method, there's no pre-rip required. We can simply use a cut block once more, or your favourite scribe tool, that's completely up to you. Now in this instance, all I need to do is take a measurement from here to here. I will add about 30mm on, so I cover the overlap of the two fillers meeting in this section here. So let's get to it. Coming out about 1800, I'll cut that about 1830. So I'm going to mask up my filler again. I'm going to put this in the middle of this job because I've just checked the height of the material. It's about 55, so obviously these are 100mm boards. So now if I put my masking tape in the middle, I'm going to be able to mark it easily, comfortably. Difference with the infinity method is we're working top down or on the inside of the units. That's going to make sense in a moment. So when we're attaching our U-Scribes to our material, we're going to attach them to the top so that the filler is hanging down, or it will be hanging on the inside. So there's a couple of things here. You can mark one of your pieces at the top just so you know where best to locate your U-Scribes. So for me, I've denoted that this is the top. Again, I'm not going to damage the inside edge. I'm actually attaching these to the back. So if you wanted to in this method, you could use the slot section. You wouldn't really benefit from it, but you could use it if you wanted, because we're hanging it from the top. And what's good about that is we're actually going to be removing the top piece of the material. So you won't be seeing any of the screws or any of the fixings in the material. So as you can see there, I've just quickly attached 3 U-Scribes to the filler material. Now, because we're working this piece of material, we're working into this corner. Now, working from corner to corner is always tricky when you're marking scribes, because you're going to hit the inside. Now, you don't want to cut this short with the radius being on the inside. Actually makes it quite tricky. So the infinity method becomes quite helpful. So what you can do is you can mark the internal width of your board. What I mean by that is, from my outside wall to my internal corner, because we're removing the top section of this material, we can cut the corner section of this piece of filler out here so that it slots underneath our cabinet, but then when we scribe it, the piece that we need will actually pass the corner. That gives us the ability then to, when we're scribing the second piece, which will be the return piece, which will be the small piece here, we'll make sure that there's an overlap, that there's no gap in between. So this one needs to pass that one, or that one needs to pass this one when scribing. I like to do the big one first, which is normally easier to work with a small piece after. So what I'm going to do now is quickly notch this top corner and slide it in place, and you'll see what I mean. So all I did was take out that top corner, and that makes sense now. Because I slide this filler in place, working in an infinity method from the top edge, you'll see that I need this corner, because if it doesn't pass the corner, we'll have that gap in the middle. So this is the effect that we're left with, because this material is the piece to fit here. Doesn't matter about this, because we're going to be cutting this filler here, so all that there is literally erroneous, doesn't matter. But as you can see again now, I'm down here, that filler's been held perfectly in place, fixing that reference point for me so I can work consistently and accurately. That is completely fixed in place. I'm down here videoing this. Safe, sound, simple. So that's the offset method. That's the offset method on the side filler. I'll now move on to the top scribe where we'll use the infinity method, which is super quick, super accurate, no pre-rips required, and possibly the most used way of fitting your fillers and faces with U-Scribe, especially when doing, like, say, top scribes, plinths and fillers where there is no mouldings or anything in the way. Now, in the infinity method, this is the part that normally catches people out. They don't understand it and they ask a lot of questions. So what I would say is, don't worry about working out how it works, just go with how it works. So as you can see here, this cut block is the exact same width as the filler material, as this piece is an offcut from the end that I cut on my saw earlier. So what this does in this infinity method is become our block to mark our ceiling or wall or floor, whichever you were scribing at the time. Now if we take this block, which again, you can just check, completely flush with the bottom. So if I take this cut block, position it to the ceiling, nice and flush. Take my pencil, just here, and mark that bottom edge. You just see me marking that bottom edge there. What that means is, you have now got pencil mark here. We need, you can just see there, a 56mm top scribe. We've just marked a 56mm mark on our board. So that means this piece here is going to fit into this ceiling gap there. With U-Scribes, you're always marking the excess. You're always marking the piece you need to remove. So with that block now, I can confidently mark all the way across the ceiling, knowing again, full well I'm marking a perfect image of the wall, floor or ceiling directly to the material. No guesswork, no gimmicks. You're marking this image to this material, so you know you're going to get a better result. So as you can see now, quite easily, without trying to hold anything or balance or guess, I can take my cut block to my ceiling, scribe all the way along. No blocks and tricky clamps. No way this can just go and fall off. Completely safe. Very easy, very simple way of marking perfect scribe lines on your material. Now in the infinity method, this is the part that normally catches people out. They don't understand it and they ask a lot of questions. So what I would say is, don't worry about working out how it works, just go with how it works. So as you can see here, this cut block is the exact same width as the filler material, as this piece is an offcut from the end that I cut on my saw earlier. So what this does in this infinity method is become our block to mark our ceiling or wall or floor, whichever you were scribing at the time. Now if we take this block, which again, you can just check, completely flush with the bottom. So if I take this cut block, position it to the ceiling, nice and flush. Take my pencil, just here, and mark that bottom edge. You just see me marking that bottom edge there. What that means is, you have now got pencil mark here. We need, you can just see there, a 56mm top scribe. We've just marked a 56mm mark on our board. So that means this piece here is going to fit into this ceiling gap there. With U-Scribes, you're always marking the excess. You're always marking the piece you need to remove. So with that block now, I can confidently mark all the way across the ceiling, knowing again, full well I'm marking a perfect image of the wall, floor or ceiling directly to the material. No guesswork, no gimmicks. You're marking this image to this material, so you know you're going to get a better result. So as you can see now, quite easily, without trying to hold anything or balance or guess, I can take my cut block to my ceiling, no blocks and tricky clamps. No way this can just go and fall off. Completely safe. Very easy, very simple way of marking perfect scribe lines on your material. And one thing you can't see, so it looks pretty straight. That ceiling looks pretty good. But if we come closer to the material, you can see how far this ceiling is actually out. You can see it really dips down here, and as we go across, you can see all the undulations in the ceiling because we've just marked that perfect image directly from there to there, because they have fixed your reference point and made it super easy for you to draw that image directly onto material. That's what makes these so unique and so useful. Now, similar as before, I'm going to take it down to my table saw. I'll reduce most of this material out on the table saw with that 15-degree bevel, and then I'll touch it over the planer, just getting that line in. Don't take it out, don't get too greedy. Leave a little bit of meat on the bone. You can always take a bit more off, you can't put more back on. And just to remind you, this is the part you keep, this is the part to remove. You always mark the waste, the bit that you want to remove. But simply chuck a few X's on there if you wanted, just to remind yourself, so you don't get downstairs at your cutting station and you don't cut the wrong side of the line, because that's obviously going to leave you with an inconsistent and not very fitting filler. So mark the excess so you remember which piece you need to keep, you know which piece you need to remove. So I've cut that filler, but as we are doing a step-by-step, I thought this would be a good tip to show a few people. I know I've told a few people over social media in the past, but now it comes down to the trade really, now with things work. So in this corner here, it's been freshly plastered, but that corner is not perfectly square. So if I take my perfectly square piece of board and try and fit it into this wall that's got a slight radius, the corners can snap off, and it's a very frustrating thing, especially when you spent that time to get that perfect scribe line. You've cut the perfect scribe, start tapping it in place, and that corner goes snap, and then you're left with either a dodgy repair or you're gonna have to repeat the process and cut yourself a new filler. So this is a good tip. It's just round this corner here. Take a file, just add a small radius, a little bit of material from the back, so that when you push this into place now, into that top corner, this does not take off a big section of this corner and leave you very angry, very frustrated. And there we have the infinity method. As you can see, perfectly scribed filler, but a lot simpler and a lot quicker. If there's no mouldings in the way, the infinity method is super fast, super accurate, and gives fantastic results. And as you can see, this filler passes this return, like I said, so when I scribe this piece now, there'll be no gap here, one can butt into the other. In effect, what I'll do, another small tip is, let's just say for example this is 600, I'll probably cut that filler 601, just so it's a nice tight fit, so it fits in that gap nice and tight. So there we have it. Fantastic scribe fillers with two different methods, all whilst using U-Scribe Jig to fix that reference point so you can mark a perfect scribe line on your work and make it easier, safer and quicker. It's as simple as 3 U-Scribe Jigs, 2 methods, one fantastic result. Now, after we finish any run of videos or stories, there's got to be some questions. Feel free to drop them in the comments. Let us know, send us a DM if we can answer them. We're always here and we're glad to help. We're tradesmen, not salesmen. We just had a handy idea that seems to help thousands and thousands of people all over the globe. Scribe like a pro, links in our bio.